This is your daily reminder. God has not run out of mercy, not for you, not today. Welcome to the New Mercies Podcast. Welcome back, another episode of the New Mercies Podcast. Today's reading, we find ourselves in Luke chapter 12. Now, if you've been following along this week, you started in Titus 3 as we wrapped that up from the last week and the last series. Then we went into Haggai 1. This Sunday, we're going to be talking about Haggai 1 from the pulpit and just where we're going in this new series called Fill the House. But we looked at Haggai 1 on Tuesday, and then Wednesday, we looked in Deuteronomy 8. And if you saw a little bit of a progression, Haggai 1 dealt with misplaced priorities, and then Deuteronomy chapter 8 warns us about forgetting God whenever there's comfort or prosperity that happens. We're going to look today in Luke chapter 12. Now, just to give you a little bit of a heads up, Luke 12 is a big chapter. I hope you read it all today. I'm going to focus in on one part. I'm sure if you have read it, you probably know the part I am focusing in on. A lot of really good stuff happening in here. Jesus is teaching within this context in Luke chapter 12. He's talking to his disciples. He talks to the crowds before it's all said and done. It's a really powerful text, and I encourage you to read it all. I want to read just a couple of verses, though, out of Luke 12, down in verse number 13 and following. It is the parable of the rich fool. And this is not the rich young ruler, which sometimes we may get those two confused. This is the parable of the rich fool, and we'll see why he's foolish in just a moment. But let's go ahead and read some scripture together, and then we'll talk about it for just a second. Luke chapter 12, beginning at verse 13. Someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." But he said to him, "Man, who made me a judge or arbiter over you?" And he said to them, "Take care and be on your guard against all covetousness, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions." And he told them a parable, saying, "The land of a rich man produced plentifully, and he thought to himself, 'What shall I do? For I have nowhere to store my crops.' And he said, 'I will do this. I will tear down my barns and build larger ones. And there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, Soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, be merry.' But God said to him, 'Fool, this night your soul is required of you. And the things you have prepared, whose will they be? So is the one who lays up treasures for himself and is not rich toward God.'" Now, that is a parable Jesus taught to convey a lesson or a message that is a really deep spiritual issue within, I believe, the heart of everybody, right? This is a powerful text. Again, read all of Luke 12. It's really great. Jesus' teaching's brilliant, way better than this podcast is going to be. Go look at what he says. But I want us to look specifically, if Haggai 1 talks about misplaced priorities, if Deuteronomy 8 talks about warning us about not forgetting God or neglecting God whenever there is prosperity or comfort that comes, Luke 12, this passage specifically, talks about hoarding up instead of stewarding. If God gives us something, He is stewarding us. He's giving it to us to steward for Him. He's saying, "I trust you with this resource." What are we doing then with the resource? This is a story of a man who he had a lot going on. His land was producing for him, meaning he had a pretty good head on his shoulders. Means he probably prepared the land well. He probably had some pretty good knowledge and understanding of what he needed to do, and probably a pretty good farm man. But here's one of the things I don't understand. So first off, this story kind of pops up out of nowhere. Jesus is with his disciples. Read the context of Luke 12. There's a big crowd that's pushed in. There's a lot going on. He warns about the Pharisees and their hypocrisy. He warns about a couple of things. Don't be afraid of people that can take your life. Be afraid of the one that can destroy your soul. And he kind of gives these disciples warnings. And then this guy just comes up and interrupts Jesus. As he's in the middle of a conversation, this guy comes up, "Hey, teacher, tell my brother to split this inheritance with me." And can you imagine Jesus in the middle of a lesson teaching, and some guy come up and say, hey, I got this personal matter with my finances. I need you to help work this out with me. And Jesus is like, who am I? Who made me the arbiter in your issue? I'm not the guy that's in charge of any estate. I'm not in charge of any of this stuff. Why are you even approaching me with this? This guy kind of interrupts. And Jesus, I think, is really important that we emphasize and understand. Jesus refuses to referee greed. He's not going to referee greed. He's just not going to do it. It's a greedy heart. He doesn't want to be the one that referees that battle. He's not going to do it. It's interesting to me whenever we get in a situation where we want something or we need something or we have this desire to get something and we're like, we're going to pray Jesus would help us to work through this. Let me go ahead and tell you, according to the Scripture, Jesus does not referee greed. He's not going to do it. Don't even ask. Don't ask Jesus, hey, I'm in this business transaction deal. I'm trying to get this. This other client's trying to get this. I'm trying to get this. This is going on. Jesus, why don't you help me to get this that I want? Jesus doesn't referee greed. He doesn't do it. He says, in fact, to his disciples, hey, be careful. Be careful that you don't fall into this covetousness. Meaning you're coveting what somebody has. You want to be wealthy because of certain reasons that don't grow the kingdom any. It's not like you're trying to invest in it wasn't like this guy was saying, hey, Jesus, listen, I want to give everything in this inheritance to the church. Is there any way you can help me kind of work through that? It's not what the guy says. He says, hey, tell my brother, come over here, tell my brother, we got to split this up. I need it. I want it. Jesus, come help me do this. And he was like, let me just go ahead and warn everybody about this coveting spirit that's on you. You need to get rid of it. Be careful. Put some guardrails up. Make sure you don't have this spirit about you. And he says something in there. I want to read it again because it's a really powerful line that I think we miss a lot. And it's verse number 15. He says, "Take care, be on your guard against all covetousness, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions." If I don't know who needs to hear this today. It does not matter what you have. It doesn't. Your life does not consist of what you have. It does not consist of what you own. Let me rephrase it. It does not consist on what you have purchased. It does not. How big your house is, how fancy your car is, how nice your wardrobe is, how much stuff you have. That's not what life is. That's not life. Jesus makes sure and helps us to understand that possessions have this quality to them, that a possession will promise you some type of security, but the truth is it can't deliver that security. It can't. It can make you feel a little bit safe, but ultimately, when is enough? Right? This man had a really profitable land. It kept building more and more and more and more. And he says, what I'm going to do, I've got so much, I can't even store it all. So he says, what I'm going to do is I'm going to build bigger barns. I'm going to build bigger areas so I can store more. Then when I have it stored up, I can take a year off. I can take time off because I've earned it, because I've done something. Well, first off, the land produced it, not you. So the Lord is the one who provided it. And now, instead of you saying, what I want to do is distribute this, I want to share it with somebody, I think it's really important for us to understand that abundance is a terrible substitute for God. Terrible substitute. And here's why. This guy in this story, in this parable, he had a land that produced a lot. He had a problem. The problem was not the harvest, right? The problem was his heart. That was the problem. The problem isn't the amount of stuff coming into your life. The problem is how you are handling it within your heart. That's the issue. Jesus says, listen, this guy did not talk to God. He talked to himself. It says he reasoned with himself. He thought to himself. He didn't talk to God. He didn't talk to a neighbor. He didn't talk to, there was no gratitude in any of this. It wasn't, I'm so thankful that what the Lord's doing. I didn't even deserve this. I didn't realize this was going on. I had no idea. This is amazing. What should I do with this, Lord? It's not what he said. He said, I've got more. So now I need to hold more. That's what I need to do. I need to grow my capacity to hold more so I can have more. That's what's gone on. See, this man is called a fool, not because his land produced a lot, not because he was very productive. He was called a fool because he may have been ready on earth to have a lot of stuff, but he wasn't ready for eternity. He didn't have those eternal things ready and set and prepared in advance. All he had ready was more storage. Even the parable, Jesus says, this guy, he's got all this stuff and he builds these barns and God says, hey, it's time for you. All that's well and fine. I'm not against wealth. Jesus is not against wealth. He's not against resources and blessing and financial gain or anything. He's against wealth without God, without knowing that I don't have to do anything for the Lord in this. Jesus says, I want you to steward this. I don't want you to hoard it. I want you to steward it. How can you share it? How can you invest it? How can you pour into the next generation? How can you let the gospel keep growing? Is what Jesus is trying to help us understand and see. Eternity does not consult your retirement plan. It just doesn't. There's no warning. There's no extension. God doesn't give this guy longer. He doesn't say, you know what? Because you've gotten so much stuff, I'm going to leave you here for another year so that you can really go out and do the mission work. See, we get our priorities out of whack, right? We get our priorities out of order. So we say what we'll do is once we get enough money, then we will blank. What we're saying is, God, we're going to trust our abilities. We're going to trust our understanding of finances and resourcing. And then once we trust us, then we'll give you something. God says that's never how this works. Don't miss out on what the Lord is trying to do because you're so focused on trying to build bigger barns. Jesus makes sure that we understand this man was not ready for eternity. I want to read one more little spot again so that we understand the depths of this. Verse 17, he begins by saying, what shall I do? And then he says, I will do this. I will tear down barns. I will store my grain. I will say to my soul, soul, you've got plenty. Stay. This is great. You know, the first time God speaks to him in this, he calls him a fool. It says in verse 20, but God said to him, fool. The man never asked God a single thing. You may say, well, how do I know if I'm ready for eternity? How do I know if I'm ready for what's being required of me? Because God says, this night your soul is required of you. It's time for you to be brought into my presence and forever. Your life on earth is over. These people that you're leaving all this storage to, they're going to blow through it anyway. It's not going to matter. And he says, so this night your soul's ready. So how do you know when your soul's ready? Well, it's a pretty good indicator if you just start by talking to him first. So I'm not going to go any longer in this episode. What I want you to do today is I want you to pray. Pray, God, what do you want me to do with what you've given me? It's that simple. It's honestly, it's not rocket science. You don't have to be some Bible scholar. You don't have to be some a deep theologian to understand that you can say, God, here's what I have. What do you want me to do with it? That's it. I promise you this. He's not going to say, you need to store up more for yourself so that you can be more comfortable. If we understand the heart of God, this pursuing shepherd that loves us and cares for us and sent his son to die for us and is and trying to get the gospel to every person in the world, if we understood the heart of that God, we'll understand he's not going to tell us, just build more for yourself and be sure you're real comfortable. It's not what he's going to do. He's going to say what you need to do with it. I don't know what you need to do with it today. I don't know what you need to do with what you have. You may be a person that's listening and says, you know what? I don't have a lot. Okay. What are you going to do with what you have? What are you going to do with what you have? Maybe the Lord's wanting you to invest what you have. Maybe your finances. It may be your talents. It may be your time. It may be your opportunity to serve. I don't know what it is, but I do know this. God's given you resources. He's provided something for you. What are you going to do to sow it back into eternity?